Danger. It comes in waves. Welcome to Small Business Update Thursday. It's 3 o'clock somewhere. I've decided it's just going to be at 3 o'clock. So if anybody wants to watch it live, it's at 3. It's 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock somewhere. That somewhere is Phoenix, Arizona. We are talking about all sorts of things today, but mostly it's a history lesson. We're going to have history lesson. We're going to have Doctor's Corner. We're going to talk a little bit about the life of Justice Ginsburg, who passed away, what's coming up next, a little primer education on the Supreme Court. I'm here with Adam Buck, and we start where we always do with sports. Cardinals win. What I love about this is that it's given like life to the children.
To yours?
Yeah, well, I just think all children, but maybe there's more than just my two. Following conversation. Okay, not to overreact or anything, but this Cardinals team will not lose a single game. I say, I don't want to speak too soon, but will the vaccine arrive before the parade? Or are we just going to risk it? Younger son, we risk it. Your Cardinals on the way to the perfect season that Tom Brady can never achieve. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I was not expecting that, so now you made me excited.
Yeah, no, this is it. It's done. It's done. It's been written. It's been texted. But yeah, this is the greatest part of the show. Oh, other news, my baseball team, when I was young, I was an intern, worked in PR for the Cleveland Indians. Cleveland Indians have made the postseason. Only thing that's interesting about this is the last year they'll be known as the Cleveland Indians. Much like the Washington Redskins became the Washington football team, next year Cleveland will change its name. Some of the leading names are the Cleveland Spiders, the Cleveland Forest Cities, Cleveland Rocks, Cleveland baseball team, we don't know. But this is it for the Indians, and it is quite Cleveland Indians to win the World Series. I would imagine this would be the greatest Cleveland Indians story to win the World Series in its final year. Just making a plot for Major League 4. By the way, there were 3 Major League movies. Did you know that?
No.
Well, it's good reason you didn't know that. They got pretty bad. But Charlie Sheen only made 2. Okay, let's talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed away last week. She had many bouts with cancer and finally died of that. Really well known as kind of the female Thurgood Marshall, who fought for black rights at the NAACP and then later actually took the court. She was the first black justice, although Ruth Bader Ginsburg was actually the second female, second to Arizona's own Sandra Day O'Connor. She was an advocate in the 70s. At the ACLU, founding the Women's Rights Project, and we'll talk about some of those cases because it's kind of interesting. And she became a Supreme Court justice, ironically, because of the lobbying of her husband, who was a very powerful, influential tax professor at Georgetown University. And she was known for blazing a trail for women's rights. She was also interestingly known for her love of opera and her great friendship with Antonin Scalia, which dated back to the time she was on the DC Circuit Court. I have some friends that were clerks for her. And so I was part of this discussion. I don't know if you saw, they all stand outside. It's a tradition for the former clerks to stand outside the Supreme Court when the casket's in repose, in honor of a fallen Supreme Court justice, and they did that. And there was a lot of them. And so they were trading stories because of her importance to women's rights. There are a lot of people who had things to say about that, but most of the things were very personal. Amongst other things, she couldn't understand the incredible amount of noise that was happening around the corner from the court when somebody pointed out it's because the Washington then Redskins, now Washington football team, had won the Super Bowl. She asked, "What's that?" But not a huge sports fan, but
not a big sports fan,
but a huge opera fan, and very important. So we're going to talk a little bit about her in a minute. I'm going to give you a chance, give everybody a little bit of a primer here, because we need to kind of level set, because this is an area where I just did an interview on iHeartRadio, and it's a mysterious institution, the Supreme Court. It was referred to by the host there as the most powerful branch of government. I don't think that's true. I think we could say it is a co-equal branch of government. At least that's what they're trying to make it be. But it's important both because of its mystery and, of course, because of the life tenure of an appointee. So I'm giving away a slide, I know, but go ahead.
All right. So yeah, we're going to talk about the United States Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is established under Article 3 of the Constitution. So it's the highest court in the nation for all cases and controversies arising under the Constitution or the laws of the United States. It ensures the American people have equal justice under the law and functions as a guardian and interpreter of the Constitution. I got that directly from their website. So that's how I know this is absolutely true.
So I had a real brief story to jump in there.
Okay.
You know, the Maricopa County courts indicate that the fourth largest trial court system in the United States. And Judge Ronnie Corbin, who's a friend of the firm, she was mentioning that in one of her posts. And somebody asked, you know, where that came from. And she said the website. So, oh yeah, the website.
It's very reliable.
Yeah, it's on the website.
All right. So the Supreme Court consists of a Chief Justice and any such number of associate judges as may be fixed by Congress. So the number is not actually fixed. I mean, currently it is. It's currently fixed at 8. So a total of 9 justices, including the Chief Justice. So the Constitution places the power to determine the number of justices in the hands of Congress. So in 1789, the number of justices was 6, 1 Chief Justice and 5 associates. Over the years, Congress has passed various acts to change the number, fluctuating from a low of 5 to a high of 10. And then in 1869, we finally settled on 9, and that's the way it's been for the last 150 years. So how are justices appointed? The president nominates the justice, and then the Senate votes to confirm the nominee, which requires a simple majority. So the Senate, the Constitution prescribes the Senate be composed of 2 senators from each state. So we've got 100 members. So 51 votes to confirm the president's nominee. And currently Republicans hold 53-47 majority in the Senate.
So what happens if it's 50-50?
Assume that no go.
No, the president of the Senate, who holds a very unique position, the president of the Senate, because the only member of 2 branches of government casts the deciding vote. President of the Senate is the vice president of the United States. So if that were to occur right now, Mike Pence would have the tie-breaking vote.
Oh.
There you go. Little constitutional fun for you.
So in reality, a tie is enough.
Tie goes to the runner being the party in power, vice president.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, majority. So the majority in the Supreme Court, majority of justices must agree to all of the contents of the court's opinion before it's publicly delivered. So you need at least 5 to sign off on the opinion. So here we've got 9 justices. And we just talked about Ruth Ginsburg, who passed away. But these are the presidents that appointed the respective justices. So you got a couple by George W. Bush, 1 by his father, 2 by Bill Clinton, and 2 by Barack Obama, and 2 by Donald Trump. So how long do the justices serve? Well, it says during good behavior, and then typically for life. So unless they do something really bad, They can be impeached, they can be removed, but as long as they're doing an adequate job, they're there for life. Although they may retire for health reasons or political reasons, they're not bound to stay there for their entire life, but they can. So recently we had the passing of Ruth Ginsburg. So there is a vacancy. So now we've got 8 instead of 9. So here's the question: are the justices political? Well, the idea is no, they're not supposed to be, because they don't have to run or campaign. They don't need to worry about being reelected like some of the other politicians. So they're supposed to be free from all of these pressures that are political in nature. But the Supreme Court is not an apolitical institution. We all are aware of it, and the justices themselves are not naive about the consequences of nominating replacements who would strongly differ from their own ideological vision. So it does make a difference, even though they're not subject to the whims of politics. They do have their own view of the world and of the Constitution. So here's what we have. We've got 5 nominated by a Republican president, and we got 4 nominated by a Democratic president. So really, if from a Democrat standpoint, you just need 1. You know, if you get John Roberts to sign off, then you've got a 5-4 decision. Now you take Ruth Ginsburg out of the equation, and now there's discussion that Donald Trump would nominate someone who would then go up on the top part. Then it would be 6-3, making it more difficult for certain decisions and certain opinions of these justices to go through. So that's really what the big heated debate is right now, is whether this should be made, the replacement should be made by Donald Trump, or should the next president, if it's Donald Trump or if it's Joe Biden, they would then nominate. So right now, in response to Donald Trump's effort to nominate and the Senate to confirm, there's been discussion of court packing. And this came up back with FDR. There's the Judicial Procedures Reform Bill Act of 1937. It was frequently called the court packing plan. So back then, FDR had lots of ambitious ideas as part of the New Deal, and they kept getting ruled as unconstitutional by the US Supreme Court, and he wasn't happy about that. So as an alternative, he came up with the idea of increasing the size of the court and adding justices that may have a more favorable view of the New Deal in a way as a workaround. So that the idea of court packing, because it's not limited to a specific size, Congress can really make that decision on increasing it. So in theory, it could go from 9 to 13 or 15. And so the question is, if this goes through, if Trump nominates somebody confirmed by the Senate, will Democrats revisit the court packing idea or concept? So the theory would be, if there's 6 and 3, then, maybe then we increase it to 13, and then the next president could nominate 4 to fill the vacancies, and then it would be a 7-6 split. So it's an interesting concept. In 1937, it didn't go over very well, but there's a lot of discussion right now about it, and it's something interesting to see whether that's going to get any traction or not.
Well, let's talk a little bit about history and put ourselves back into 1937. So now in 1937, FDR had had a whole bunch of his of elements of the New Deal struck down, basically saying the government is overreaching by putting so much power in the hands of the federal government. The 1935-36 term especially had been a big deal, where a lot of 5-4 decisions by the conservatives who were opposing these things, including all sorts of things having to do with the New Deal. So in 1937, as you just mentioned, there was this plan that was up in front of Congress to increase the number of justices. And along came the case of West Coast Hotel versus Parrish. And in this particular case, one of the associate justices, Owen Roberts, which is just interesting because he has the same name as John Roberts, who switched his views on a few things in order to keep the court balanced over the last few years, switched in upholding a minimum wage law. And that is known as the switch in time that saved 9. And so it's interesting because, we have another Roberts now who switched his vote on an abortion, on a challenge to abortion from his position just a couple years earlier, saying that precedent is very important, and also upheld the Obamacare Act. And so, we've seen kind of balance in the Supreme Court right now. And in particular case, history repeats itself. We saw a different Roberts back in 1937 save our current 9-member court. It's interesting, I think, to most people that, number one, there is no rule that says a president can't appoint in his last year and the Senate can't confirm. And they get a little confused because Senator Mitch McConnell, who's the head of the Republicans in the Senate, in 2016, said that Merrick Garland could not get a vote when he was nominated in March of an election year. And now people say, hey, Mitch McConnell, what are you doing? He justified it by saying that it's different because, of course, now the Senate is controlled by Republicans as well as the White House. We're yet to see where this comes out, but it seems that the Senate, 51 of the 53 senators have lined up behind whoever it is who's been indicated it will be a female, be nominated to the Supreme Court. And so it's kind of interesting. I guess I like talking a little bit about cases. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had, one of her early jobs in her career was she was the founder at the ACLU of the Women's Rights Project. And one of her early cases had to do with Sally and Cecil Reed. Their child died. And their child died in Idaho. And Sally and Cecil, back then, it was very common, I guess it might still be common, for married people to simply be separated, right? And they were just always at war with each other, but they were married. And they each asked the probate court in Idaho to name them the administrator of the estate. And by the way, this estate was less than $1,000. So this is just a proxy fight for a real bad marriage. But the law in Idaho at the time said that a male must be preferred to a female when making an appointment of an administrator. The Supreme Court of Idaho said that the Idaho Code is arbitrary and unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court of the United States said that the 14th Amendment prohibited differential treatment on the basis of sex. And so the court reasoned that it needs to be scrutinized, and whether there's a rational relationship to a state objective. They later changed that to an intermediate standard. In other words, there needs to be a real good reason why you would pick a male over a female. And this was a big deal because it was the first case, Reed versus Reed, where the Supreme Court of the United States recognized that something was unconstitutional because it denied equal protection under the 14th Amendment. Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote that brief. There is a number of other cases, including the Phillips versus Martin Marietta Supreme Court case about Title VII, which has to do with universities discrimination. And so all this was kind of happening at the same time. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was pretty clever. One of her early cases that she won in the 10th Circuit was on behalf of a male. Charles Moritz filed suit against the Internal Revenue Service because the IRS would not give a tax deduction for a caregiver for his invalid mother, and that was allowed for a woman and a formerly married man. He was always single. So the code was discriminating against a male in that particular case, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg won. She was nominated by President Jimmy Carter on April 14th, 1980, onto the Supreme Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. What's really interesting about that is Jimmy Carter is the only president after the mid-1800s who actually did not nominate a Supreme Court justice. But he did get a chance to nominate a future Supreme Court justice. When he nominated her, she joined Antonin Scalia on that Court of Appeals, and then later they were together again on the Supreme Court. You know, I did have some comments about my email. You know, we speak relatively glowingly of her. I think even Ted Cruz today said she was a great jurist. And then he had some other things to say, but you know, I did get some pushback, so I do want to give a little bit of time to the dissents here. A real good friend of the firm, who is not a lawyer but probably better than us, did mention a couple of her cases. One was Oberfeld versus Hodges, which is about gay marriage. And he indicated that marriage really should be thought of in terms of government interests, in terms of children, not necessarily individuals' rights to marry. And so he disagreed with that. He also brought up the Hobby Lobby stores case. This is the one where Hobby Lobby, for religious reasons, did not want to have contraceptive coverage in its healthcare plan. And she wrote the dissent there. And she basically indicated that there was no right by an amorphous corporation in order to make this political decision. He did point out that we see businesses every day making political decisions, including support for religious causes and others. So not everybody agreed with her, but of course, her best friend seldom did, Antonin Scalia, who was the last election year vacancy. So we'll see what happens. Anything else on our Supreme Court for now?
I just fascinating the idea that the strategy behind retirement of Supreme Court justices. Because there were some people that were saying, you know, she wasn't in good health when Obama was president.
Yeah.
And there were some people that were saying, look, why don't you just, you know, avoid the risk, retire, let Obama replace you with somebody. And obviously that didn't happen, but it's just interesting to think about because they have lifetime appointments and because it really does matter whether a Republican president or a Democrat president, you know, nominates it.
All right, I'm gonna be a doctor now, which is what everybody looks forward to. I'm gonna talk a little bit about vaccines. So we have two things that are of interest. One is that AstraZeneca's trial continues to be on hold in the United States because of a rare reaction. There was one reaction of somebody in England. Basically, so one thing that the virus does is it creates inflammation, right? And so we know that there's steroidal things that we can do to help that. Well, while mimicking the virus, in England, somebody had a rare reaction that involved inflammation in the spinal cord. And so that is real bad. And the AstraZeneca trial has continued in other countries, but not here in the United States. They like to have doctors, scientists review that before moving forward. So we have a couple others that are in the pipeline. And today we have a fourth one, and that's Johnson & Johnson. They're going to have 60,000 adult participants in their phase 3 trial. Why this is interesting is twofold. One is it is a single dose vaccine. They're actually going to split test it. It's possible they'll be able to get immunity after a single dosage. That is a big deal. The other ones all require 2 shots. That is obviously problematic, right? Johnson & Johnson is going to run a trial using lower dosages in the UK in order to see if a double dose is more effective for this particular one. It is expected that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration would not approve this one before early 2021. The other companies, by the way, are Moderna and Pfizer, as well as AstraZeneca. Here is a little piece of interesting news. The other vaccines, not the Johnson & Johnson one, need to be delivered in deep freeze. That means they need to be frozen and held at -70 degrees Celsius, and they must be used within 24 hours of thawing. You can imagine the United States, the problem that is, right? Like, we have to figure out a way to maintain these vaccines and give them, et cetera. The advantage, besides being a single dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is that it can be held for up to 60 days in regular doctor's office refrigeration. That's a big deal, and that could be very helpful in getting the vaccine distributed. We'll kind of see what happens, but it is notable and it is interesting, and we'll kind of see how this manifests itself. Like, you don't think about stuff like that, right? Like, how are we gonna get enough refrigeration around?
Yeah. If they're frozen, do you have to let it thaw before you can give it to somebody?
Yep. Yeah.
And how long does that take? So, because you got to use it. Once you thaw it, you got to use it. So you have to kind of know in advance how much you're going to need. Seems like a drop by would be difficult to go get a vaccination. You have to plan ahead.
They have not announced what happened in the phase 1/2. That will be out in the next few days, but they are injecting something that is basically a common cold that's getting this reaction that's preventing COVID, which begs the question, are we all going in to get a shot to get a common cold? I hate common colds. I hate them. So we have to live with it. 200,000 people in the United States are dead now. The best estimate for the end of the year is 380,000. That means we're only half the way there. But there is a worst case scenario, about 600,000 deaths by the end of the year. Around the world, we're seeing spikes, and that ain't great. The second wave is hitting Europe. There were announcements in Britain that there'll be pubs and restaurants closing at 10 p.m. That's going to be for the next 6 months. And Czech Republic did a similar thing. And hospitals in the the Bordeaux region of France are getting close to running out of beds. And Madrid just announced new lockdowns. So a lot of things happening. They're a little bit worrisome. All this kind of comes in context of a presidential election, right? So we got coming.
Yeah.
So you're gonna watch these debates? We got one between now and next week, the 29th.
There's a lot of good drama. There's a lot of good entertainment that should go on.
You know, part of the thing they're saying is that President Trump might have overplayed his hand because, Joe Biden might not come out and be a blithering idiot.
Well, I saw that he was sort of complimenting him. I read something that he's trying to, build him up instead of push him down and say how terrible he's going to be. So now there's an effort to say, oh yeah, I think he's going to be really good, to raise expectations, I guess. I don't know. I
guess. But in any case, he spent a long time, saying that he was incompetent and kind of mentally infirm. I would suppose that a victory for Joe Biden is not drooling, right? Just like be there. But it'll be interesting TV. So that is next week on the 29th. And without an audience to ooh and ah, I guess we'll all have to do that at home.
Where is it going to be? Do you know?
Cleveland, Ohio. I
St.
know
Cleveland?
that because that's where the Indians play. I just brought that full circle.
There we go.
By the way, they're playing baseball playoffs in a bubble, so no home field advantage. There's not fans anyway. So there you go. Got anything else for us this week other than the fact that, sorry, you're not getting free money, businesses. You're not getting another check in the mail, people. And the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg kind of sucked all the political wind out of everything else. By the way, there is a framework that will avoid a government shutdown. It looks like that's going to pass, so we're not going to have a government shutdown. Hooray! I mean, what a bonus disaster that would have been. All right, I think we did it.
That's it.
Yeah, write us, jfruitkin at radixlaw.com or buck at radixlaw.com. It's down in the comments. If you have topics that you want us to talk about, we have some business topics that we will talk about, including non-compete agreements next week. See, Adam? We got something good for you to talk about. And yeah, so until then, I guess we'll see you around. Make sure to subscribe so you can see the newest episode at 3 p.m. on Thursdays. Of course, it'll download automatically to your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever phone you got if you choose to get us by podcast. Otherwise, thanks much for watching us, and we'll see you next week.